Angry protesters at the Capitol confronting police and demanding to be let inside. But this isn't Washington, D.C. This is Lansing, Michigan, a rally organized to protest COVID restrictions, with members of the state's militia groups openly taking part. Among a small group of people, a plan was taking shape to do something much, much worse. The alleged plan was to kidnap the governor and put her on trial for treason.
13 suspects arrested, including 7 alleged members of a right-wing militia group. The FBI and state authorities conducting a series of raids in Michigan. Those 13 suspects taken into custody, 7 of them alleged members of that right-wing militia group.
Front and center in the alleged plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer at gunpoint was a man named Barry Croft, who was seen carrying one flag of the Boogaloo Boys, a far-right anti-government movement. Croft in this photo and on video obtained tonight by the I-Team that prosecutors say show him and others in live assault weapons training preparing for a violent assault on the Michigan governor's summer home. Before the FBI launched such a deep investigation, the Wolverine Watchmen were not even considered a violent threat, according to attorneys for the defendants. In the latest defense filing tonight, they say the group was not engaged in illegal conduct of any sort. Federal agents had enlisted 12 confidential informants to provide information about Barry Croft. Digital messages involving Croft, also provided today to the I-Team, refer to a bridge near the governor's vacation home that authorities say the militiamen scouted, photographed, and planned to blow up during their commando attack.
Gretchen Whitmer is the 49th governor of Michigan, taking office on January 1st, 2019.
I feel really good that the voters of the state voted to reject bigotry and hate.
Determined and optimistic, today Governor-elect Gretchen Whitmer made it clear she'll work with anyone, regardless of party affiliation, to get things done.
I think our areas where we can find some common ground, because we know potholes are not partisan, and the education of our kids is something that we all benefit from.
Whitmer says she'll be hard at work, making sure we don't see another water crisis, and we fix the roads as promised.
I guess we're gonna have to fix the damn roads now, right?
She's a former senator and representative. Whitmer is a survivor and advocate for women's rights.
Working on infrastructure in Michigan is at the top of the list. Of course, we'll be writing a state budget.
Helping her with her transition will be a carefully selected team led by Farmington Hills trial attorney Mark Bernstein, who's also a University of Michigan regent and who's advised her behind the scenes in the past. Former Detroit Mayor Dennis Archer is also a team member, along with former U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuaid. Another big name on the transition team will be pediatrician Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha, who helped expose the Flint water crisis. And as for her tone in office, the former state senator says she's already learned this lesson from past governors.
First and foremost, not to assume that the legislature is a bunch of employees. They're not. They're a co-equal branch of government.
Whitmer was selected to give the State of the Union response to Trump in February 2020.
The truth matters. Facts matter. And no one should be above the law. It's not what those senators say. Tomorrow, it's about what they do that matters. Remember, listen to what people say, but watch what they do. It's time for action. Generations of Americans are counting on us. Let's not let them down.
The FBI encountered Barry Croft and Adam Fox.
Delaware News Journal reports he was pardoned for a series of crimes committed in the 1990s. Those crimes include weapons offenses, assault, and burglary. Croft was pardoned by Democratic Governor John Carney. Today, Carney called the new charges against Croft disturbing.
Dan, who agreed to be a mole after concerns were raised about harming police officers in the plot.
I wanted to storm the Capitol.
Did they indicate how he was going to do it?
Just take 200 guys, go up in there, take hostages, tell them lies, and execute the governor.
Croft is allegedly heard describing that God has granted him permission to violate his commandments. Among the thousands of pages of potential evidence, according to authorities, a photograph of Croft with a flag featuring the Boogaloo symbol like this, an extremist organization bent on racial upheaval and government chaos.
There was also discussion of installing militia members as the new government. One of the men, a supposed leader of the Wolverine Watchmen, claiming he would be targeting the state's attorney general and lieutenant governor.
Accused bomb maker and ringleader Barry Croft Jr. was recorded in an excited tone about his intent to commit acts of terrorism.
And said the group spent hours staking out the governor's vacation home and worked with groups in Ohio and Wisconsin to help with their plot.
The latest criminal allegations linked to the militia group Wolverine Watchmen could shift the way militias are perceived and operated.
All of the defendants are from Michigan except for Croft. The government says the scheme appears to have roots in a June gathering in Ohio attended by more than a dozen people, including Croft.
The FBI reported that they were aware of the terrorist group from a social media group chat the individuals were in. A U.S. Army vet, Dan, would expose the group chat to a local officer in the Department of Michigan.
That target meant to kick off Boogaloo, a reference to a second civil war, those who follow those beliefs wearing Hawaiian shirts to signal their support.
In a detailed report by BuzzFeed News, the terrorist group had their first arranged meeting by someone who turned out to be a longtime government informant from Wisconsin. The FBI reported that they were aware of the terrorist group from a social media group chat the individuals were in. A U.S. Army vet, Dan, would expose the group chat to a local officer in the Department of Michigan. The FBI encountered Barry Croft and Adam Fox.
Accused bomb maker and ringleader Barry Croft Jr. was recorded in an excited tone about his intent to commit acts of terrorism. Croft is allegedly heard describing that God has granted him permission to violate his commandments. Among the thousands of pages of potential evidence, according to authorities, a photograph of Croft with a flag featuring the Boogaloo symbol like this, an extremist organization bent on racial upheaval and government chaos.
The FBI would interview the individual named Dan, who agreed to be a mole after concerns were raised about harming police officers in the plot.
I had wanted to storm the Capitol.
Did they indicate how he was going to do it?
Just take 200 guys, go up in there, take hostages, televise it, and execute the governor. And then hopefully the reinforcements would respond to responding officers.
Dan gave detailed accounts of the planning of the alleged plot to kidnap and kill the governor and other politicians, telling the court one of the men working with the group wanted to tie up the governor and put her on display.
He wanted to hog tie her on a table and kind of like a DEA presentation.
Dan said the group spent hours staking out the governor's vacation home and worked with groups in Ohio and Wisconsin to help with their plot.
So we eventually funneled down that Michigan would be the capital of Michigan would be the target. So the train that started conducting on into Sunday was pertaining to Michigan.
That target meant to kick off Boogaloo, a reference to a second civil war, those who follow those beliefs wearing Hawaiian shirts to signal their support. There was also discussion of installing militia members as the new government. One of the men, a supposed leader of the Wolverine Watchmen, claiming he would be targeting the state's attorney general and lieutenant governor.
He was talking about the lieutenant governor and Dana Nessel, and stating that he had a Hawaiian shirt on in his vehicle, that he was in Lansing, had his stuff with him, and that he would throw this Hawaiian shirt on and go on the Capitol right there.
In a detailed report by BuzzFeed News, the terrorist group had their first arranged meeting by someone who turned out to be a longtime government informant from Wisconsin. The informant paid for their hotel rooms and food. On March 30th, the co-founder of Wolverine Watchmen made a speech about citizen arresting Governor Whitmer, as well as other comments that prosecutors would later say indicated a violent intent. According to court records, the intentions led by the terrorist cell reportedly went back as far as April 19th, 2020. In that same month, the Wolverine Watchmen built a fake house using PVC tubing and called it the Kill House. Dan showed them how to push inside the building and how to clear the rooms. Pete Mazzocco would run drills where he would circle the kill house, waiting for Governor Whitmer so he could, quote, catch that bitch as she came out of the emergency exit.
Musico kicked out of the group he founded, the Wolverine Watchmen. He and several members charged under the state's terror crimes laws for allegedly plotting, training with the goal of kidnapping Governor Gretchen Whitmer. But Musico's lawyer says plotting and training are in fact not crimes, and the group is non-violent, kicking one member out for domestic violence.
So this supposed violent extreme militia group apparently had a domestic violence policy that was tougher than the NFL's.
Lawyers for the Attorney General's office, they are arguing that Musico and the Watchmen are violent and revealed that there were two plans. One to kidnap the governor, and then Musico's alleged second plan to target other politicians and police.
And I'm telling you what, right now, man, I'm gonna make this shit 100% clear, dude. If this shit goes down, okay, if this whole thing, you know, starts to happen, I'm telling you what, dude, I'm taking out as many of those motherfuckers as I can. Every single one, dude. Every single one. And if you guys are gonna give any of these motherfuckers a chance, any of these gang criminal ass government thugs that rob people every day, if you're even gonna give them a second to try to speak or tell their story, don't even with me, dude. Don't even with me. I have zero patience for immoral coward criminals, okay? And guess what? I'm sick of being robbed and enslaved by the state, period. I'm sick of it. And these are the guys who are actually doing it, you know? So if we're doing a recon or something and we come up on some of them, dude, you better not give them a chance. You either tell them to go right now or else they're gonna die, period. That's what it's gonna be, dude, because they are the enemy, period.
On June 6th, a meeting in Dublin, Ohio, began plotting to establish a self-reliant society that followed the U.S. Bill of Rights. Among them were talks of peace and violence. Among this group were individuals who believed government officials should be murdered, and those in attendance should recruit neighbors. It was here where more talks about kidnapping the governor of Michigan went down.
According to the federal affidavit, a group of about 15 organized a meeting here in Dublin on June 6th. They discussed state governments they believe that were violating the Constitution and ways to have their voices heard, including violent actions like taking or killing a sitting governor. It's unclear what motivated this group's meeting. The words pandemic or COVID are never mentioned in the FBI's report. But while surveilling the governor's home, one of the men told an FBI informant that he believed Michigan's governor, quote, loves all the power she has right now, and that, quote, she has no checks or balances at all. In addition to the 6 men charged federally, the Michigan Attorney General has charged 7 more of these Wolverine Watchmen under the state's anti-terrorism law.
The individuals in custody are suspected to have attempted to identify the home addresses of law enforcement officers in order to target them, made threats of violence intended to instigate a civil war, and engaged in planning and training for an operation to attack the Capitol building of Michigan and to kidnap government officials, including the governor of Michigan.
In an alleged plot to kidnap and kill the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer. At the time, federal prosecutors said the men had even met in Dublin to discuss the plot. Well, now federal prosecutors filed paperwork yesterday with new information in that case. In those filings, they say, for example, on June 6, 2020, Fox and Croft attended a meeting with militia activists from multiple states where they proposed attacking the governors of Michigan, Ohio, and Virginia. Croft brought and displayed to the group an improvised explosive device he had constructed for that purpose. This is the first time there had been any mention of Governor DeWine's name in these alleged plots. Last year, when the plot against Governor Whitmer was made public, Governor DeWine said he had no knowledge of it.
On June 12th, the Wolverine Watchmen terror cell began training. That day, Adam Fox said that the plot to kidnap Governor Whitmer had to occur before the 2020 presidential elections.
Investigators say that meetings were held in the basement connected to this plot, and the owner says Adam Fox lived here.
And was he living down there?
For the last week and a half. What happened is he was homeless, basically. I knew him since he was a kid, and I told him he had to have a place by 1 November. So just like what everybody said, the FBI was in his circle, so they knew what was going on.
So with what happened, how has this affected you personally, or your business, or your mind frame, or your...
Very stressful. I have supporters, but there's also people leaving hate on my phone, which makes me emotional every time I hear it, because they don't know the whole story.
And what is the whole story?
The whole story is he had this thing going on. He was doing it after hours, and he was doing it when I wasn't here. But thank God there was a FBI planted in his militia, went to all his meetings, recorded everything, so they know. So that cleared me, because I had no idea what he was doing. So now people, I'm getting a lot of support because they know me. I'm a 12-year Marine vet. This is my life. And for the record, Adam Fox don't own the story. He's an employee, because they posted that too there. So that makes it even worse for me, So for the record, Adam Fox was an independent contractor for me. I knew him since he was a kid. I helped him graduate from high school, and something happened. I think he had no family, so that was his family. But what he's did is just uncalled for. Just crossed the line. And he put his mom, me, my family all at risk. Even his 2 dogs are homeless. I've got to find for that. So that's basically it.
Wow.
And the rest is on the record, because the FBI, that 15-page thing's available to you.
Are you just waiting for this nightmare to be over on your part?
Once they're tried and convicted, I think it'll go away. It might not completely, because customers are asking questions, so I'll give them, answers. But this is not going to be a year from now. This is going to be quick. This is swift. I wouldn't be surprised if for the election they'd be setting up trial for him.
On June 18th, Adam Fox was recorded by a confidential source attempting to recruit leaders to unite in the effort and help with the attack on the state capitol. Then, 2 days later, Fox invited a group that consisted of an informant to where he was employed. Fox collected cell phones to prevent recordings and led them to a trapdoor. Audio from an informant contains discussions of the attack on the state capitol, specifically how to counterattack first responders and how to use Molotov cocktails to destroy law enforcement vehicles. This group planned another meetup on the first weekend of July to continue their plot. August 30th, the FBI said screen captures of the group chat showed Ty Garbin suggesting the demolition of a bridge near the vacation home to slow and distract police.
One of 6 men federally charged in an alleged plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer has agreed to plead guilty to a kidnapping conspiracy. The plea agreement signed by suspect Ty Garbin indicates he will, quote, fully cooperate with investigators.
October 7th, the terrorist plotters were arrested and charges were filed against them the next day. Search warrants and arrests were executed all across Michigan. The arrests were reportedly part of a planned effort between federal and state authorities, launched after evidence was discovered indicating the suspects wanted to kidnap Whitmer before the 2020 election. The investigation also involved people from Baltimore to Kansas City. Several weapons and other items were seized, including at least 1,916 rounds of pistol, rifle, and shotgun ammunition, hundreds of firearms, extended magazines, various silencers, speed loaders, and bomb-making equipment.
Certainly stunning, especially when you learn that this was a plot that was starting to be discussed back in the spring. The feds were on this early on and continued to monitor it as they were gathering evidence. And as you said, the raid here last night, simultaneous with a raid over in Grand Rapids and several up north. Now take a look. As the raid was going down here in Heartland last night at around 7:30 and sunset, a resident started rolling on his cell phone and posted it on Facebook. The feds say in a 16-page complaint, the police started talking about state officials as murdering tyrants and others in state government beyond just the governor. They held tactical training. They talked about needing 200 people to storm the state capitol. The FBI had confidential informants, undercover agents, audio and video recordings from the meetings. The plot all to do this before the November election. 13 people arrested.
Hatred, bigotry, and violence have no place in the great state of Michigan. If you break the law or conspire to commit heinous acts of violence against anyone, we will find you, we will hold you accountable, and we will bring you to justice.
Terrorism comes in many shapes and forms. In this case, domestic terrorism might have prevailed had it not been for the FBI. Many lives were saved by this action, and many lives were ruined due to their extremism.